like the most important thing. Like everybody wants the hoodie to where they committed and they want the Instagram post, but like they're beating themselves to the point where like you're overlooking the most important, those players that get to those good schools and they get the Instagram commitment and they get the number one ranking. You have to actually be.
Arteaga drives one to center. Miller hustling over. Diving catch by Ian Miller. A great catch.
3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the 9 Hole Podcast. This is your host, Ian Miller. Man, I've been fortunate enough to, have a plethora of college coaches on, pretty recently, and talk about, their trials and tribulations, their journey, their story, but also share with you guys, kind of their thought processes, their coaching philosophies, what makes their players better, how they teach it to them, and some things on, recruiting, separating yourself from the pack, all stuff that plays into the 9 Hole Podcast. So it is my absolute pleasure, Giuseppe Papaccio, the associate head coach, right, for the Seton Hall Pirates, and kind of my first taste of having a Northeast cat on the podcast. Giuseppe, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Man, I'm doing great, man. It's a pleasure to have you, dude. How has everything been going? Where are you at right now, like with practices and where you're at with where the season's about to open up? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're honestly, as a coaching staff, we're just in the office preparing for the guys to get back next week. So for those of you that don't know, like college baseball, the guys go home for break after finals for like almost a whole month. So we're about to end that right now. We go back to school on Wednesday of next week, and we start up right away with practices. So we're in the office and setting some things up, doing some scouting reports and doing some planning for the week to come. And there are guys in and out of the cages in the weight room and on the field working out, but that's kind of it. We can't work with them right now until we get back to class. But we're trying to maneuver the Northeast baseball thing and see, okay, what weather is good for being outside and what are we trying to do inside and what does it look like next week. So we're just planning as best as we can so we can hit the ground running.
I love it, man. So that's something that obviously, I had to go through. We were playing at the same time. We played against each other.
Yep.
Man, so like being a grinder in the Northeast, that's a little different. It's something that's, might be a common theme here throughout, the course of the podcast, but I definitely wanted to hit on it with you because you have to battle the elements. So for players maybe that are down south or on the West Coast, like this might not be something that they have to deal with aside from rain or whatever it is. But dude, when I'm opening up, at Wagner or I'm practicing, we would have to use the field. We would have to use the football field, the lacrosse field, all turf, and we would have to get the snow off of it. Or we would have to, if we couldn't do that, dude, we were practicing inside, in the basketball court. It just was kind of crammed. We had like a kind of a makeshift cage at the time. Craig Noto has changed the program immensely and is kind of leading that. We could probably hit on that later. It's incredible what he's doing. But like, what are you guys doing to battle the elements? How are you guys, getting ready for first pitch in, a little over a month, whatever it is? It might be less than a month now, but like, what are you doing for that? How are you battling these elements?
Yeah, we're trying to honestly see, okay, what is like a dangerously low temperature that we can't be outside for too long, but what can we get done inside? So we're fortunate enough that we have like our own hitting facility indoors, so we can do all of our like offensive training downstairs in our cages. But obviously a huge part of the game is pitching and defense. So we're trying to figure out, okay, what are the best days to get out there on the field for the most amount of time? Like there's honestly, like next week, we're about to see a little bit of snow, I think. So we're trying to say, okay, what days can we get out there before it snows and spend some time out there? And what days are we going to probably have to be inside? And then you kind of structure, all right, we can cover this outside, so let's do this drill work. And when we're inside, we can do the other drill work. So that's, I honestly spend a little bit more time than most people on like the weatherchannel.com trying to play weatherman. But
unbelievable.
That's kind of that. I mean, that's part of it though. I'm honestly a little bit more surprised. We're kind of lucky. It's the weather has only become a factor like January and February. Like all fall, we were outside. We probably hit in the cage like 2 or 3 days because it was raining.
Okay.
But all fall we did as much as we could on the field. We do have turf. We have a ton of sunlight on our field. Our guys will laugh at that sometimes, like the sun is shooting right in your face, but it warms it up enough. And honestly, and I'm not biased here. We have tough dudes that don't mind being cold like that. I think they've tied into that, and like either you sink or you swim
That's right.
with the cold weather. So you kind of have to adapt to that. So our guys are good. They don't go out there and complain. They don't go out there and like wear a beanie and blow on their hands the whole time. We're lucky with guys like that. So whatever we throw at them, hey, we're going outside for 30 minutes of defense, or hey, let's hit on the field today. It's kind of cold. Let's just do it. They're always with it. So that's kind of what we're maneuvering now. But it is
That's
what it is.
big.
We're going to get the work in either way.
I love it. I love it. So obviously with the temperature, battling the elements, making sure your guys stay healthy, getting into the season, um, it kind of comes down to like quality over quantity, right? So it's like maybe if you do have a half hour outside, it's like if we take some ground balls, on the turf before the snow comes or whatever it is, or whatever we're allowed to do, whatever you guys can handle, those need to be quality reps. Maybe does that, man, that has to maybe heighten their senses, heighten their awareness, and maybe have them lock in a little bit more to what they're doing. Is that crazy to think? Like, I mean,
No, that's completely accurate. Like I think something that we talk about is we always talk about going 10 out of 10. So for me, that means when your career, and me and you saw it, like your career comes to an end at some point. Like we're both drafted, we're both playing pro ball. Like you obviously get to the big leagues. Like one day it's going to end. You want to look back on it and know that like you checked every box of what you can do. So when it comes, train the mental game, train your body, train your vision, hitting and defense and all that stuff. Like we talk about, don't leave any box unchecked. So when your career is over or the season is over, you're like, it is what it is. I gave it everything I got. So like for us, let's say we're going outside for 30 minutes of defense. Like our mindset as a unit is like, we got to go 10 out of 10 for 30 minutes. Give me 30.
ooh,
Like, and then we'll go grab our stuff. We'll go back inside and we'll hit. And then you'll give me an hour, 10 out of 10. Like breaking it up into pieces like that is really valuable for us. And that's something that honestly, we just started talking about that. Obviously I just got back here last year. So it's kind of something that we brought to the team last year and they ran with it. And then it's something, hopefully, as far as like building the culture and the continuous success of the program, like that's something that sticks. So it's like honestly, I could go on a tangent about that. Like, and honestly, it trickles into everything. Like we talk about being 10 out of 10, but like the other thing too is like we have to do the stuff that's unsexy. That's one of the 10 things. That's part of it. Like, hey, hit the cold tub today. It's middle of October. We lifted, we conditioned, and we had 3 hours of practice or whatever it was. Like you probably want to walk right past the training room and go to the cafeteria. But like if you want to feel better tomorrow than you do right now, you probably should go in the cold tub. Like
for sure.
that's being 10 out of 10 too. And that's like the unsexy stuff that we talk about. It's like foam rolling and laying on a lacrosse ball and all that before you start throwing and before you start working out. Like that's the unsexy stuff too. So that's kind of where the mindset is for us. Like when you asked about like going outside and being able to lock in for like 30 minutes, that's kind of our mantra is like, just like check off this box, do everything you can do right now. And then we'll break it up into little pieces. So
I love it. I love it.
Long-winded answer to that short question.
That's fantastic. That's stuff I'm going to ask you about all of that later. Hopefully, have a great convo about it. I just wanted to hit on your background, kind of how you came up in the game, right? So obviously we touched on, we played against each other. 2013 Seton Hall graduate. You got the fourth, your fourth all time, right? The hits record, that's incredible. Career record for doubles. Tied Seton Hall's single season record in doubles, drafted 18th round by the Cubs, played 2 or 3 years, got the AA man, spent some time at Manhattan, 4 years at NJIT, right? Associate head coach, recruiting coordinator. You helped lead those boys, American East Championship, all that stuff, man. And then won a regional, right? Won a game in a regional. So you're entering your second year as the associate head coach in Seton Hall, man. What's been the journey like overall for you, seeing the different side of the game, right? So you were a player, got to the pro ranks from college, man. Now you're kind of back, in the coaching seat. Looks like you're primed to be a head coach here at some point. I'm not saying where or when, but it looks like, dude, you're on the fast track, man. You're 32 years old. Like your journey has been crazy, man. That if you could Just elaborate on it a little bit for me. Tell me, a little bit about the upbringing in baseball.
Yeah, of course. And you cut me off with any questions because I could talk the depth of my baseball background can go pretty
I
far,
got you. I got
especially
you.
with Seton Hall. So you got anything, you just cut me off.
Done deal.
But obviously the Northeast New Jersey stuff that we talked about off air a little bit. I grew up in Nutley, which is like 20 minutes from Seton Hall. Went to the public high school, did the whole recruiting process, and ended up at Seton Hall, which is something I would never change for the life of me. Like you said, played here, got drafted, and then I got released by the Cubs, and I played a year of independent ball, and that was where my mindset with the 10 out of 10 thing started. Like that year in indie ball, it was like July, and I was hitting like 250, and I looked back and I was like, man, I did everything I can possibly do in the offseason. Like I wanted to get signed again. So I was like, I'm just going for it. Like I did everything I could do in the offseason, and I'm hitting 250, 260 in indie ball. And I was like, all right, maybe I'm not like a major leaguer. Like I was really thinking that. I was like, all right, so like what's the next thing? Like honestly, I could play indie ball until I'm 40 years old. Like, is that what I want my story to be? So I think 23 or 24 probably. And in that time, I was still playing in indie ball, and I started reaching out to all the coaches that recruited me. I started reaching out to Monmouth, to Fordham, to Manhattan, and I was just like, hey, are there any coaching spots open? And the way college baseball works, back then there was only 4 spots. So it wasn't like if you liked me, you can just hire me. You know what I mean? Like there had to be spots open. So there were a lot of helpful people out there, but I reached out to actually Jim Carone at Wagner, and he was like, man, I know all about you. I loved you as a player. There's no spot on the staff right now. So that's how it kind of went. And then Jim Duffy was my hitting coach and recruited me at Seton Hall, and he was actually the head coach at Manhattan at the time. So we went to a regional and won the Big East championship when I was a sophomore. And then the next year he got the Manhattan head job. So he was there. I texted him. He's like, yeah, come by. And
That's awesome.
drove up to Manhattan, and he toured me, and he was like really nonchalant. He was like, you want it? You got it. You could have it.
That's fantastic.
And that's the beginning of a funny story. And some people might not understand, like it used to be called the volunteer role in college baseball coaching. They changed that language last year. So now you can be paid it depends on the school, but you can be paid. So I was the volunteer at Manhattan, pretty much just make ends meet by doing camps and doing lessons and all that stuff. And for me, I was living in North Jersey, and I was driving across the GWB, the George Washington Bridge, 6 days a week. And that was like 19 or 20 bucks a day. So I was going morning lift at like 5:36. Then like I would go in the office, then we'd practice. Then I would get back in my car, go back across the George Washington Bridge and go to a facility and give lessons. And like I was really just dumping the money back into my Easy Pass and the tolls. So I did that, and Coach Duffy, like, I mean, he's been a mentor to me forever. We're still really close. We live like 2 blocks away from each other. He's done so much for me. And that first year coaching, just the connection with him and the players, I was like, man, like I remember driving down the turnpike to like my wife's house, but she was my girlfriend at the time. I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I'm going to figure this thing out. Like, I'm just going to do it longer and try and do it better and just outlast people. Like you see it probably all the time. Like the ex-pro player gets into college coaching and they realize that like you don't get paid $100,000 your first year, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, I got to make money. So like you see these good players get into coaching for a year and they get out. And I was like, I love this thing. Like I love the feedback from the players. Like when you're working with a guy and he gets a base hit with what you've been working on, like that is just about as good as like you working on something yourself and it comes through. So Manhattan laid the foundation of like, this is what I want to do. Then I end up so he offered me a paid position there, and it was like part-time. It wasn't like a ton of money. And the same position opened, the volunteer position opened at Seton Hall, like the same week. And Jim Duffy is a Seton Hall grad. He's in the Seton Hall Hall of Fame. So I had these 2 options on my hand. And I was like, Coach Shepard would like me to be the volunteer and work with the infielders and hitters, and Jim Duffy wants me to like do the same thing and recruit. I ended up making the decision to come back here and be the volunteer. There were a couple financial things, like I could live at home and make some money with lessons and be closer to my girlfriend. Anyway, so I I did 3 years, one at Manhattan and 2 at Seton Hall as a volunteer. So like 3 full years of just like make it work, make
Grinding,
less camps, and then
grinding.
summer ball. Yeah. So and it was like I really didn't feel like I was going to work every day. So doing all that wasn't really an issue. Then I went to the Cape and coached in Orleans. And about like halfway through the summer, the NJIT coach left and the pitching coach got the head job. And he called me and said like, "Hey, we worked a couple camps together." He's like, "Hey, we haven't talked in a while, but like, I'd be interested in hiring you, making you a part of our staff." So that was like I went from like the volunteer to like good full-time pay at a state school, recruiting coordinator,
Big.
had the offense to myself. Like I remember sitting, we were in Chatham, it was the neighboring town to Orleans, and my wife was visiting, and like I got the call, and we were sitting in 2 beach chairs, and I just like put the phone down, and like my head went back in the beach chair, and I was like, oh my god, I was excited because the funny thing was I kind of rolled the dice here. I was a volunteer, and we've been dating for a long time,
Mm,
and I proposed. I was like, it was November, and I was didn't have like a full time job, and I was like, we're doing this thing. So that summer, we were planning for a wedding in January. It was July, and I was like, all right, finally got the full time job, the benefits, the retirement, all that stuff. So it was like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders, and man, that opened up a door of just like unbelievable players that I was able to work with at NJIT. Like the turnover and like culture and just like focus and just like they laid a good groundwork. They went to the conference tournament before I got there, but it was like just being able to work with players that wanted to be really good and they weren't really
mm.
used to my flavor. Like I was the new guy there. Like the head coach left and everybody else pretty much stayed. I was the new guy. And honestly, and they know this, like I brought a lot of Seton Hall stuff to NJIT. Like that was all I knew really.
Yeah.
I played at Seton Hall and then worked for a Seton Hall grad. Um, so we implemented some things, and man, like those guys, I texted with a couple of them yesterday. Some of the guys that I coached that are now they have full time jobs and they're doing their own thing. But like besides being really good players, like they were just a joy to work with. So that's where that brought me. And then
It's
that was
awesome.
4 years, 4 years there. In the same position, associate head coach and recruiting coordinator, worked with the hitters and the infielders. And then this job opened up last year and it felt right. And I did it. And Coach Shep is somebody that I have more than any explainable respect for and appreciation for what he's done for me and continues to do for me and what this program has given me. So
I
I
love it.
felt like it was part of my duty to not just take the job, but like come back here with like more to give back to the players than just punching the clock.
Yeah,
That was really important to me. Like
that's awesome.
that was why it was like such an important decision. Like beside my wife is a Seton Hall Pirate. Like my mom still teaches here. She's taught here for 20 years. I don't know if you knew that.
No, no, no.
Me, my sister, my brother, my aunt, my mom, we all went here. My best man, the godfather of my son, like my wife, were pirates, man. So
Yeah,
this is where
I think my father-in-law went to Seton Hall. It's terrible because I should 1,000% know that, but that's crazy. So
the
I love the story. We touched on, the 9 hole being, a grinder type of mindset. Being a Northeast baseball player, you're a grinder, regardless of how you want to look at it. You're a grinder in the college ranks, in the pro ranks, like in the major leagues, whatever it is. Like Northeast players, they're grinders, and that is a common, viewpoint on the matter, right? So, kind of as you touched through your story, your journey, and some of the things that you had to grind through, right? The tolls and the going back and forth, and kind of like trying to provide and conquer and rise through the ranks and stuff like that. Like it hit me, with the grinding and just I was able to pair it all up, right? It all kind of comes
yeah.
together, man. So the common theme, right, is you are a grinder. I look on your Instagram and I see some motivational quotes, maybe some books, right? And then I see something at 2:30 a.m. about atomic habits atomic habits, right? That's the book. And obviously I haven't read it, but I know people that
It's
have,
gotta be.
and they talk about it, and it's changed their lives. What does discipline and hard work and grinding and stuff, like, how does that tie into your routine And are you getting up at 2:30 a.m.? Like, do you incorporate that into your life?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny that this is what we're talking about, but it honestly pairs with like my coaching experience and my coaching style. I think, like I think part of what I feel like is my, I guess, like personality is like I just want to earn everything that I get, and it's not cliche. It's not like I'm not doing this because we're on the podcast. Like I want to feel like when we go into the season or when we go into a practice and I'm trying to get the players bought into what we're doing and trying to win, like they can look at me and be like, I respect that. Like I know that he does it on his own, so like I'm going to listen to him. That's honestly like where a lot of it comes from. Like and that's where the confidence from a player comes from, is putting in the work and feeling like you earned it. And that's where confidence in my profession comes from, is like I'm willing to do anything for you guys to get us to win. And again, maybe that's part of like the Seton Hall passion that I have for us, is like it's not just my 9 to 5. It's like getting us to be good is like, again, not to be cliche, but like I feel like that's my purpose here. It's like it's I'm wearing it on my shirt, but it's really in my heart that like we have to get the players good, because this is what I have to give back to the players. So and to the players and the school and the program and all that. But the morning wake up stuff is honestly, so I have two boys, Peter and Vincent. One is 2.5, and one of them is 7 months old. And I've always woke up early. We've always had to wake up early to work out in college and stuff like that. So that's kind of where it started, but it snowballed earlier and earlier and earlier, because when we started having kids, I would do I would do the night feeding with the bottle at like, it would be like 2:30, 3 o'clock, and I'm sure people listening know, like sometimes it takes 40 minutes, and then you got to put it back to sleep, and then he doesn't go to sleep. By the time I was done, sometimes it was like 4:15, and I was waking up at that point at like around 5. So I was like, all right, I'm not going back to sleep for 30 minutes, because like that was my window to work out, was before I go to work. Like
Yep.
I couldn't get in the car after practice and be like, honey, I'm going to the gym for 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
you got the kid. So I had to make that decision. Like if I want to be in shape and kind of like, when the guys look at the coaching staff, I want them to look at people that are like role models.
Damn straight.
Maybe I don't know if I'm in the minority or majority, but like I think you listen to someone who you can physically respect a little bit more.
Mm,
So that's just part of my lifestyle now. Is just like I want to. You only get one body and one mind, and both of them are getting paid dividends from working out. So that was my choice. Is that like now I got to get up early around 2:30, 2 o'clock. It depends on the day. I go and work out. Usually it's like either in my house or I just like run on the street.
yeah.
And then I try and get back before the boys wake up, so I can be dad. I can get them out of bed and I can help them downstairs and sit on the couch and watch TV and make breakfast. Then I go to work. So again, like I could wake up at like 4 or something and work out, but then I would miss them waking up. So I just bite the bullet and go earlier, so I could be done, showered, and then they're getting up. So who knows? I'm going to be honest. Who knows how long this can last? I feel pretty good.
Oh,
I
what
feel
time do you go to bed?
if I put them down between like 8 o'clock, 8:30, like I'm brushing my teeth at 9 and I'm going to bed as soon as I can.
Yeah. Okay.
That's honestly, people ask me that all the time, because like guys on the team are like, how are you how are you waking up this early? Like what time do you go to bed? And I'm like, I get 5 to 6 hours. I know it's not 8. Like I tell them, I'm like, you guys need I'm like, you guys need 8. You need to recover. Like don't look at what I'm doing on the sleep end. You can look at the other stuff.
For
But
sure. Yeah, it's
I've
a good way of looking at it.
I've honestly, yeah, like I don't want the message to be like you guys don't need to sleep, because
That's
they
right.
do. But honestly, that's a price I'm willing to pay, is to be able to like if I chose sleep over working out for the next 30 years, I think I would be in a serious hole
Yeah,
in my health.
absolutely. That you it's probably irreversible too at that age,
So
right?
that's a long-winded answer to it's my only window to work out, to be able to stay in shape and be there for my kids and do my job on time with the purpose that I'm supposed to do it with. So
That makes a ton of sense. That
I
makes a
guess
ton of sense.
that's the discipline part of it. Is just there are days I'm like, man, it is free. Like the other day. It's like, it feels like 24 out there, and I'm like, I got a face mask and a beanie, and I'm running down the street in the dark. So
I
there are days
respect it.
you don't want to do that, but I see you on the treadmill, dude. Zero
That's
heart
right.
rate though. That's
The-
unbelievable.
yeah. So it's, man, when it dips below like 35, 40, you're not going to catch me outside, even with the headgear and whatever else you want to put on. That's a different type of, like, that's, you're an animal, right? It might be the borderline, like, animal, animal type psycho, however you want to say it. I love that. That's the type of person I want on my team. That's the type of person that I feel like I could go to war with and look up to. I feel, dude, I 1,000% feel that, because
Thank you.
the years that I was able to get the most out of myself, I could directly attribute that to who was coaching me. And dude, everybody's going to slump at some point, right? I will listen to who I respect, not saying that that's my coach or not, or an outside source, but like, if I need you for something, or I want to fully trust in the advice you're giving me, and I want to be fully bought in, every like respect point that I want to emulate who I'm, looking up to, and get advice from. If I don't look at somebody like a role model, will I listen to their advice? I don't know, right? But if I look at my coach, I respect that. I can respect him. I'm like, dude, I want to be like that guy. That's easy for me to buy in. And I feel like the years that I've had my best, seasons statistically, were the years that I had a direct relationship like that with my coach, that I looked up to. I still talk to my high school coach to this day. Still want to be like that dude. My college coaches, right? There was something that I could just respect about them, so much so that I'm like, dude, it's a blind faith. I'm fully bought in,
Yeah.
and I was able
Well,
to
I mean,
kind of
I'll
get
do
the
it.
most. Yeah. So the stuff that you're doing is setting that type of example, man. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
Biggest what's been your biggest challenge? So we touched on the climate, having to brave the elements, how you've been getting up at certain times to fit your schedule, fit your needs, be completely present in your personal life and your family life. Obviously you have a growing family, man. That's incredible. So balancing that dichotomy, like, it's mind blowing. What's been the biggest challenge coaching wise? Not maybe not
You're
off the
saying more like with our team,
Yeah,
like
like overall, the coaching wise, man, what's been like the biggest challenge that you've kind of had to overcome? We'll get into the success of, last year, but like, man, what's been the biggest thing?
I don't know if this was going to be a little bit later on the podcast or anything, but the transfer portal, honestly, that might be one of the biggest challenges just to navigate on a daily basis. And I know a lot of coaches, if they're listening to this, they'll agree with it. And in our, like, we're not in the ACC, we're not in the SEC. We're right in that niche of like, if we get players that are really, really, really good, which is the goal, recruiting and development wise, like, people in those conferences are watching, especially in summer ball, the NECBL, the Cape Cod League, all these leagues. Like, you get your players to a certain level, you work with them every day. You get the culture to a certain level where the guys are just grinding it out and working every day, and they're getting better and getting better. And then they can just go in the portal and leave in one day. Like, that's
Crazy.
like, oh, I got you really good, and you got yourself really good, and now you're like, wow, I can play at this school. I can play in the SEC or whatever school. That's probably the biggest challenge. And the other thing too, that I know a lot of other coaches can attest to, is just being able to flirt with that fine line of keeping players happy. So honestly, like, you want them to stay when it comes down to it. Like, if you back in the day, and part of the way that I was coached here, like, coaches can push you pretty hard because, like, to be blunt about it, like, what are you going to do? Transfer and sit a whole year? Like, that's how it was. Like, now you have to, all right, I need to get on this kid, and he needs to know that this is the standard and this is the execution and
Mm,
this is the hustle that we need. But also, like, if I make him mad enough and rub him the wrong way enough, like, we probably lose a good player. So that's every day. It's like, this kid needs to be kicked in the behind, but I need to pat him on the back. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
that's
Ooh,
probably when it comes down to it. Like, yeah, the people talk NIL and people talk scholarship. We're fully funded. We have great facilities. We have a really rich history. We have a great stadium, and the coaching staff is a big family, and we have great alumni. So I wouldn't say any of that stuff is an issue, really. I'd say, like, people kind of always looking at like the grass is greener on the other
Mm.
side. I think that's probably it. Like there's honestly a couple guys in the recruiting class that we're about to bring in that I'm like, you grind it out and you get this kid and you're fired up. He calls you and he's committed and you're fired up. And then the next thing you think about when you're hanging up the phone is like, is he too good? Like, is he gonna be a freshman All American and then we lose him?
Yeah.
Like,
That's crazy.
that's
I'd never thought about that, man.
that's
I
realistic. Like there are a couple kids that I'm like, this kid is an absolute stud. I hope he stays here.
For
Like,
sure. So I went to like my story, right? Not to just totally hijack it, but
no,
I feel similar there, right? So when we were playing, I went to Wagner College. I was a walk on, and after my freshman season, it wasn't very good, but I started. I showed, I had the capability to kind of, not thrive at the Division 1 level, but I could stay afloat. I was young, I could run fast, and then I went. That summer I played in the Great Lakes, collegiate league for the Hamilton Joes, and I kind of showcased well. And man, I was like, I always kind of thought about, man, what if I was at, you know, uh, who did we play? Like we played like Winthrop, man. We played Kent State. We played, bigger schools, Rutgers, Seton Hall. Man, we played some of these Big East schools and just bigger conferences. Like, man, it would have been awesome to go there. What could life be like there? And what would it be like playing at a bigger school with better competition around better people? Like, could I further my academic and professional career? Right, I want to play in the big leagues, but do that having to sit out a year was just like no chance.
nope.
Can't. A year of no stats that hinders any type of growth in my mind. That totally deterred me. No chance, and I'm not going to transfer down. You know what I mean? I earned a spot
Yeah,
on a Division 1 team. I walked on, and I'm going to transfer down to D2 to play more. I was playing every day. It's just like I kind of had to
yeah,
look at myself and be like, dude, I got to like man up, grind it out. I'm thinking about transferring. I hit under 250. You know what I mean? Like I think that's kind of when I got shocked into the 9-hole grinder type Northeast mindset. I embodied it and just went about my business, man. So like I love kind of the mindset and just how you go about your business. I wanted to talk about offensive success
yep.
and kind of where you've been able to take your guys just from last year, just and kind of the stuff that you've been able to accomplish at NJIT. Um, so in 2022, so NJIT had offensive success, school record in hits, doubles, triples, home runs, walks, RBI, extra base hits, total bases, stolen bases, on base percentage, slugging percentage, and OPS. Your first year back at Seton Hall, the offense improves big time, exponentially, like leaps and bounds. You're back in the Big East tournament. 2023, the 31 wins, highest win total since 2016, 291 team batting average, highest since 2014, 40 home runs, only team in the Big East, 5 starters, 300 plus, over 800 OPS, over 400 slugging percentage, highest totals in 20 years, man, which is insane. And the coaching staff overall received the Big East Coaching Staff of the Year, and he had the most all conference first team players since 2014, man. So the sauce that you're teaching your kids, your young men, your student athletes, right? The next generation, man, that stuff is real. Whatever you are teaching these young men is real, and you're proving it year over year in multiple programs. Like, man, what do you attribute that to? How can I kind of break it down for my viewers? How can you, explain it to them without, maybe giving away all the secrets? Or you gotta, but the hard work is obviously plays into it, man. The level of talent plays into it. But man, what are you teaching these guys?
Yeah, I mean that's obviously it's a loaded question, but I think the basis of the success of the two programs that have really swung it really well the past couple of years, a lot of it like the truth is I think the message that we try and relay to the guys and that they've grasped and grabbed by the neck and ran with it was just trying to outwork everybody so that when it comes to game time you feel like you've earned the success that you're about to have, and that was kind of the message that was the message that I needed as a player. Like I was a talented player and probably a little too flashy for my own good, and I got carved as a freshman. Like I played every day, I hit like 240. I was like, I'm better than this. Like I got humbled really quick, and I was like, I need to get better faster, and like what other way is it just to outwork everybody? So like, and it's kind of unseen for a lot of it, but that's the message I've relayed to every team that I've coached, really. And I think they can respect the fact that I think I'm myself and Coach Ramiz, Mike, our Doba, we're really open to any type of conversations that anybody wants to have about our offensive development. And I think if you were to ask one of our hitters, like what are the absolutes of our program, is that like you need to train the guys really hard, but you need to care for the guys really deeply. And they need to know that like you're the guy in the office watching the video, watching all the tape, doing the scouting reports, setting up the machines. Like that's a huge part of our program, is like it's just built on blue collar work. Like I feel confident coaching our guys with a message. Let's say a day of individual hitting. I feel really confident in our message that we can relay to the guys when I've done all the homework to teach it to them. Like if I just see something on Instagram and like, hey guys, we're doing this drill, and like the other guys are in the back, like I saw that last night on Instagram. Like that, to me, that's my biggest fear. I hate that. Like I don't want them to think that like my secret sauce is Instagram. Like believe me, I post all the time, but I think that's part of like, and you said it too, like you see some of the posts sometimes, but I want people to know what we're about, what the offense is about, what the program is about, and what I'm about. So if I'm recruiting you, like I want you to have a feel of that. So I think that's with the programs that have had the success, the offense that have had the success, is we try to outwork everybody, but with serious detail, attention to detail, and we try and teach guys how to actually hit versus like how to swing. That's part of it, and how to just like maybe strike the ball harder. That to me, like that's a valuable piece of it. If you hit a ground ball to the pull side 110 miles an hour, it's probably getting through. If you hit it 82 miles an hour, it's probably a ground out. You know what I mean? So
that's right.
So there's strength to that, but like part of I think our offense and the one at NJIT too was like we were making it in a slow cooker. It wasn't like, all right, guys, everybody, like, here we go. This is our offense. Everybody's got to get on the tee, do this. And like every day, we're going through a little bit of movement. I might feed them a drill in the beginning of their routine work. Then I give them some time, like 10 minutes to do the routine in front toss. You might like bottom hand, and you might like open stance. You might like cross leg.
They have the individual freedom.
You have about 10 minutes to do front. I say, hey guys, we'll jump in here. We got 10 minutes of routine, and it's whatever they want. And I might bring them a movement before that or after that. And then the next day, you'll see guys doing what we did the day before. Some guys like it. Some guys will never do it again. Some, like a lot of our routines, especially the younger players, now they're in the routine. Even like we have a fifth-year transfer who I think is one of the better players I've coached. His routine is like all stuff that like was fed to him in September. Like it was like, hey, try this, try this, try this. Now he gets in there and he does 5 of this, 5 of this, 5 of, and it's all stuff that we did. So it's there for the guys taking. You might like it, and you might be like him and do it all the time. You might never want to do it again because it doesn't work for you. So that's part of, I think, the identity of what I've tried to do offensively is like, we want to outwork everybody. We want to go deep with attention to detail, and I want to be in there with you, earning it with you. I'm not sitting on the bucket while somebody else is throwing BP or feeding a machine. Like I'm throwing all day, every day, and if I need to feed the machine, like I try and feed the machine, or the other coach feeds the machine. Coach Ramirez feeds the machine, or Mike feeds the machine. Like we want it to be like us instead of like the coaches and the players. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
I want the players to. We want the players to just like go to war for Seton Hall baseball. You know what I mean?
1,000%.
I think that's a little bit long-winded, but there's no answer that I'm going to give you that like you can write it in one word. Like it's really just like a culmination of we want to just outwork as many people as possible in a smart way. We want it to be quality work, but we want I want it. Maybe this is funny to say, but like if a coach tells you that he doesn't play favorites, he's lying. Like, we play fit, the hardest workers and the most coachable guys, and like I would say the most diligent, the most disciplined, the most dedicated, again, the hardest work, like those are my favorite guys. And like that, the goal, we have 24 hitters. We have a lot of hitters this year. The goal is to have 24 of your favorite guys. That's like now the standard of Seton Hall baseball on the offense is that you do the extra work, you do the video work, you do all this work, and then you do the practice work. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I've tried to take it with both the offenses that I've coached, is just do it every day, do it all the time, do it with passion, do it with attention to detail, and just do it longer and harder and better than everybody else. So
It's not a facade, man. It's not. Your life is shaped around it. Your life is shaped around Seton Hall baseball. You're hoping your players buy in. It's showing, obviously, in the success that you're helping bring to the program, that the players are buying in, and you're embodying it. You're waking up at 2:30. You're not fucking around, getting up, working out. Right? You're somebody that your players can look up to, try to emulate. Role model type, and it's you're creating that environment. You might not say that, but coming from a player's aspect, right? Like, that's fully being bought in. And like, if I'm going to be playing for you, going to war for you, if I know this guy is fully bought in, and like he's somebody that I look up to, and like I want to emulate, want to be like that dude. Like, the things that I'm going to be able to up and do and pull up out of me and rise up to the occasion, like, it's going to be exponential, man. So I think that's awesome. Definitely wanted to hit on that. So maybe that's culture, the environment, how you go about the practices, whatever it is. The talent is obviously there. You're a competitive team, man, a legit team. How do you use data to help with the offensive stuff, how to track this stuff, especially with a college kid, and where are they at kind of with that data, man? How are you able to tailor it all to benefit these guys without overwhelming, if that's even a thing at this level right now?
No, it definitely is, and that was it's taken a little bit of like trial and error. Like when I was the volunteer here, we did a little bit of like diamond kinetics, and then we did some blast motion, and at NJIT we did some Rapsodo hitting stuff. We've looked at TrackMan data. Like you can sit there and look at a zillion different things, but I think for the majority of it, you can shift it to kind of fool guys. You know what I mean? Like, you can have some really good numbers, but when it comes down to it, like, are you putting the bat on the ball enough? Do you know the strike zone enough? Do you have an approach enough? Do you put together tough at bats? Like, that's what our offense is mostly built on. Like, I'm telling you, there are a lot of things that we look at. I would say data wise, to be honest with you, it's more of like, what are we, so synergy for most people that understand it, it's more of like, what are we doing well, and what do we need to do better, and what are opponents, offenses and pitching staffs, what are they doing well, and how do we match up with them? Like, I'll give you a short story. Part of our biggest leap last year was we came back from spring break, might have been hitting 220 as a team, and in seeing the at bats and like watching the video and watching it in real life too, like, we weren't swinging enough at pitches that like weren't sexy. So like the ball that was middle away and a little bit down, like, we weren't trusting our swing to be able to hit it on a line to the opposite infielder or the opposite outfielder. Like, we were looking too fine to do damage when we could be swinging at fastballs early in the count and just taking singles or doubles. You know what I mean? So what I did was, we went back to synergy, and I looked at a couple good offenses. I highlighted some Division I teams that I think are really good, and I compared their numbers, swinging percentage in the strike zone on fastballs and in what zones, and our numbers. And I brought it to the team. We had an offensive meeting, and I said, this team is hitting 320 as a team. We're hitting about 220 or 230 right now, and they swing at these pitches and these counts, and we don't. And the message to the guys was like, we work so hard. Every swing that we take is on video, which is a testament to our managers, like, and our video guys. Like, they set up the camera, they cut the video. It's in a Dropbox before you're out of the shower from practice. Like, and you can walk to the cafeteria and look at it on your phone. You just hit a half hour ago. So
it's awesome.
Part of that, yeah, it's really valuable, and the managers do a great job. But part of it is like looking at that stuff and like, hey guys, we do all this work. We do all the mechanic work. We do all the vision training. We do the timing training. We do the machine, the spin, the angles, all of that. We work so hard at it, like trust it more in the game. Like you can hit a ball, you can hit a fastball in a 1-0 count a little bit down and a little bit away. Like your swing is good enough. Like you have to trust that you're good enough and you know the zone and you know your body and you know timing. Like we started swinging more and we took off like at an extreme huge trajectory. Like and we finished like you said, we that was probably 15 games in, we were around 220 and we finished almost at 300. So it was trusting, and that's to me that's like where the data really paid off. Was like, all right, let's look at where we're getting pitched and let's look at like why we're not swinging and let's look at teams that are swinging and how they're having success. And it was like, okay, it was like kind of those light bulb moments that are like, all right, we just need to swing more. Like, and it's a testament to their strike zone awareness, because we looked at that this fall, our swing percentage in the strike zone and our take percentage outside of the strike zone was really, really good. So
Ooh,
like our team knew the strike zone.
that's
Like
big.
it was, and that was part of like one of our individuals. When it's in the zone and it's hittable, we're swinging at it and we know our boundaries. Like we know that box, we know the strike zone. Like that's part of it. Like taking your walks, as a player at the highest level, like taking your walks will do wonders for you and for a team. So
That's right. It'll keep you in
you
the
guys,
game and it'll win you the game. Could
yeah,
potentially, right?
like the goal is to score more runs. So like the more base runners you have, like the better. So it might be a walk, it might not be sexy sometimes, but knowing the strike zone pays dividends. So I would say the data, we still look at how hard we're hitting the ball when it comes down to like, we have TrackMan now. When it comes down to like looking at things like that, it's valuable. We want to hit the ball hard more often though. It's not like how hard can we hit it. Like, ooh, our four hitters exit velo is 110. I'm looking at like how often does he hit it 95 to 100. You know what I mean?
For
Like
sure.
how like, and it might not be. It's not something that we track every day. It's not something that we look at. Like I can go into like some of the chart stuff that we've done that I kind of made up. But that data is more valuable to me. Like, how are they pitching us? How are we swinging the bat? Where do we need to swing more? What do we need to lay off? Like game planning for teams. That's where I'm trying to hammer more of the numbers than just, and it serves a time and a place, just like velo and all those things like that. It's important, but like basing your offense approach around that, I think is a little bit too difficult. So we get the nuts and bolts in some different numbers.
That's
I
like a
hope that,
full-time job in itself, it seems like, man. Are you So you're not just showing up, running your boys through practice. You are this. I mean, this is a full time job. If you're not, if you're not grinding through baseball, you're thinking about it, or
yeah,
if you're able to be a little present for your family. This is something that I battle with all the time. Right. I want to be an absolute savage in my personal and professional life. Right. I want to be the best there. But I also want to be as present as I can with my family. You know what I mean? Like it just,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know, man.
I mean that's people. You could probably figure it out if you look at some of the times that I post some of the video that I do. Like this morning I posted some swing video and that was just me like on the treadmill before I run. Like sometimes I'll just like walk and just wake up a little bit and I'll just watch some video or like look at, all right, what do we need to during the season. I'll watch like the ESPN 3 rerun of our game yesterday and like, hey, these are like, this was a strike and it was a called strike and we should have swung at it. Like then we start talking about it. I might be doing that at 3 o'clock in the morning on the treadmill, but like that's the time that I have to do it. So and it's the truth. It's not, I'm not looking for brownie points or pats on the back from anybody. That's just when I have to do it. But like looking at those things on my own gives me the confidence to just bring it to the guys and be completely convinced that like this is the right thing that we need to work on. So
Awesome.
we're going in a little bit of a different direction, but it's the truth. I'm trying to look at like every area that we can try and make just a little bit of a gain to get better. And sometimes it's looking at my phone on the treadmill at 3 o'clock in the morning.
For sure. For sure. So we touched on, the competitive landscape with the portal, right? With transferring, with variability there. People don't have to sit out if they want to leave, up and leave, go somewhere. And there's only so many scholarships there's only so many spots on the team, so the landscape is becoming, even more competitive overall. There's less and less spots for players. If there are transfer opportunities, high school players need to make a decision. Junior college players need to make it right. There's transfer rules, and the portal comes open. That's a whole different conversation. What I'm trying to get at is the landscape is becoming even more challenging, right? For maybe a high school kid to come to Seton Hall, or to come to Miami, or come to whatever it is. Like it's becoming more and more difficult, right? It's becoming more and more competitive. It's becoming more cutthroat, is how I kind of like to describe it. That's crazy. But just knowing what you know now with your journey, your grind, um, if a younger student athlete wanted to play baseball in college, if this younger athlete wanted to use college as a stepping stone, college baseball as a stepping stone to do what we did, play professionally, get a taste there, and then propel their career wherever it takes them, what advice are you giving to them right now? Let's say if they're younger in high school, man, they want to play college baseball, they want to play professionally. How are they going to stand out?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, and it's a really good one. I think, and it's part of what we talk about sometimes on our recruiting visits, and like when we do camp and we talk about recruiting, like a question and answer type of thing. I think you have to get to a certain point where you value development more than your ranking, especially at certain ages. Like you have to, before you're chasing and perfect game is great, PBR is great. We use it all the time. We fact check and look back on players' video and look at their everything and look at their numbers. It's great. It makes a lot of sense in a lot of different ways. But before you're looking to be ranked the number one shortstop in New Jersey, you have to get good.
Yeah.
That's like the most important thing. Like everybody wants the hoodie to where they committed, and they want the Instagram post, but like they're beating themselves to the point where like you're overlooking the most important, those players that get to those good schools and they get the Instagram commitment and they get the number one ranking. You have to actually be really good. And it might sound like super simple at the most basic level, but like value your development before you go out and just chase like a number or chase a ranking or chase just getting committed. Like, you and I both know, like the best commitment on social media might not be the best for you. Like you committing, if I went to LSU out of high school, that's not the best commitment for me. Looking back on it, I couldn't play at LSU as a freshman. You know what I mean? Like, so for most guys, I think you need to fill your bucket up with things that are tangible right now to get you better, and you have to have the trust that like that's going to get me, whether it be committed or drafted out of high school. Those things, like I need to get good now, and those things will come. Yeah, you have to do things to get seen. You have to go to certain showcases and certain tournaments, and word of mouth has to be spread. And maybe you got to do a little social media, like some Twitter video and stuff. But at the top of everything needs to be development. It needs to be getting better. It needs to be being realistic and aware with yourself. With like, you might be a 15-year-old high school kid. What did I do last year that got me carved so often? Like, why did I hit 215 as a freshman in high school? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like looking at those things realistically instead of like, all right, I'm a sophomore now. I got to get committed. You know what I mean? Like, no, you're a sophomore and you got to figure out how to get more hits in games. Like, that's the truth. So I think that's probably the most valuable piece of information I can give you that's realistic is like, put the value on development and getting better, and then you start looking at like, oh, I'm pretty good right now. Like I feel like I'm at the point where I can be showcased and I'm attractive to some schools. And it might be, for some players, it might be I'm going to get really good, and then I'm going to look at the short list of schools, the Seton Hall and St. John's and Wagner and Rutgers. Like those are my schools that I like. I feel like I can showcase in front of them. Boom, go to their camp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of like waiting for somebody to invite you to the perfect game national showcase. You know what I mean? Like that might be a different avenue for different types of players. But I would, if it's my son, he's 2.5 and he loves to swing a bat. Who knows what's going to happen? He might want to play baseball. He might not. We're going to work on getting good before we work on getting committed. You know what I mean? Like that's like, let's get better and let's be really solid. So when we go out there, they're like, whoa, this kid's pretty good.
I
You
love
know what
that.
I mean?
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. Man, I got two more questions for you. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
That's fine.
Obviously, you have experience at a high level of Division I college baseball, man. Coming, your background playing and coaching, and playing in the professional ranks, right? I got two questions here, back to back. If you want to play at the Division I level, you need to be able to do what and why?
You need to be able to compete. That's probably the most cliche answer you can give. But when it comes down to it, there's going to be, let's say you're a shortstop. There's two or three other shortstops on almost every college team. If you're a catcher, you usually carry four catchers. So like wherever you go, you're going to have to compete for a spot. And when you get in the lineup, you're going to have to compete with a guy that's throwing 92 to 94 with an 85-mile-an-hour breaking ball. So you're going to have to compete there too. So if you're not training in a way that's going to get you to compete, I think that's going to be the hardest part for you. But also, I think the thing needs to be that you have to love the game. Like that's something when you want to do the things that nobody else wants to do to get better. There needs to be that passion and the purpose to love and to enjoy the game like that. If you're not competitive and you don't love it, dude, it's not going to work. Like
Mm,
you're not going to be able to play at this level. Like when you look at a day for a Division I athlete, like let's just say our team in the fall, like you lift in the morning, you go to class for 2 or 3 hours, you get something to eat, you go to practice for 2 or 3 hours, then you get something to eat again. You might have night class, and then you go hit. Like if all of that is a job for you, and you're not like completely embedded in that, and you don't love it, like
no
you're
chance.
wasting 4 years of your life. Yeah, just go somewhere and just be a student. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like if you can't compete and you're not in it for the love of the game, like it's going to be hard to play at the Division I level. So I would say that's without saying like you need to throw strikes and you need to hit the ball hard. Like that, those are things that like, yeah, you need to be able to do that. But like if you don't have that competitive spirit. And to me, I honestly like I became more competitive in college, and I think that's the same for a lot of guys. Like you get to this level, and at least for me, I was like, I'm the big dog. You get here freshman year, and you're like, wow, I'm the third shortstop. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you thought you were pretty good, and then everybody is pretty good. So that
That's right.
competitive spirit is built with good culture, and that's something that I think I'm really proud of for our guys. Is that like there are no prima donnas, there are no guys that want to be patted on the back all the time. Like they want to be told the truth, and they want to be guided in the fastest way to win. And I give them a lot of respect for that. It's part of the reason I love coaching this group of guys is that they're competitive. They don't like, hey, tell me the truth. Like that one thing you'll laugh at. This might be funny to you. I know we're trying to save time. Something I told the guys last year is like my my approach to coaching you guys to be able to go to sleep at night and rest my head on the pillow and feel good is like I'm going to coach you like the guy who tells you that you've got food in your teeth. Like if you've got food in your teeth, there's going to be a handful of guys that are like, dude, that he's got broccoli in his teeth. Like I'm not telling him. Like
Yeah.
and then
Right.
you go and talk to this pretty girl and you got food in your teeth. You go back to your buddy and you're like, dude, you didn't tell me. Like how did you not tell me that?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to coach you guys every single day, and with humility and with good communication. Like if I see something, I can't go to bed at night and be like, man, I saw John Luders do this and that, and like I didn't tell him. I just didn't have the heart to tell him. Like you build tough skin, you build thick skin with guys because they know you have their best interest in mind, but also like, hey man, I'm your coach, but I'm just trying to win as much as you're trying to win. Like this is if I let you do this for a week straight, like that's on me. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you like, hey, before you go over there and talk to Susie, like you have broccoli in your teeth, you better clean it up before you get
I
over there.
love
Like
that.
I would like
I love.
I would hate to go that the analogy is like I don't want to get to June and the kid come up to me and be like, yeah, I hit 220. I was doing this all year. And then in my head, I'm like, yeah, I saw that in December.
Yeah. Oh,
I just couldn't
yeah.
tell you. You know what I mean? Like that. Just tell me. Like I want to hit and I want to win.
Damn
Like just
straight.
tell me as soon as possible. If I got and I've told guys like if I got broccoli in my we're doing something that like is a little bit. Hey, the velo is too hard. Like it's unrealistic. There's no reaction time. You can't see it. Tell me. Like we had that in the fall. Guys were like, hey, we get the velo training. We do it every day, but like you kind of have to swing before the ball goes in the machine. It's a
Yeah,
little unrealistic. So like they feel comfortable just coming up to me and telling me that, and I'm like, good, I'll move it back, and it'll be, you know what I
that's
mean? Like, so
perfect.
that's when they can see that and they can feel that. That's, I think, when you have a good culture of guys just like, hey, we all want to get better. That's the mindset.
Dude, it ties into and hits on what we alluded to earlier, man. What we hit on, just like what you're trying to create with the respect and fully buying in and just embodying that. Hopefully that's reciprocated with with your team, with your guys, your student athletes, man. Sounds like, and it looks like that is exactly what's being done. Last question I got for you, Giuseppe. So, what does the 9 hole mean to you? Obviously, this is the 9 hole podcast. Like, when you think about the last spot in the order, the 9 hole, what are those characteristics of that player? And, what do you look for in a 9 hole hitter to do in your lineup?
Yeah, the 9 hole to me, I think this is an awesome name for the podcast.
That fires me
Um,
up.
the 9 hole to me, like, you've heard the foxhole analogy, right? Like, who do you want in your foxhole? Like, to me, who's the guy? Like, if you're going to war with somebody, like, who is going to have your back, and who's going to just, like, not to be like too extreme, who's going to rip somebody's head off with
Yeah.
their bare hands to get on base? Who's going to rip somebody's head just to win? Like, to me, like, I want 1 through 9 to all feel like that, but like, all the stuff that we've already talked about, like gritty and being a grinder and being this and being that, like, to me, I want I want you to be able to cover the strike zone. I want you to be able to see spin. I want you to be able to get on base because you're a table setter for the top of the lineup. I would love for you to be able to run a little bit. So like when the top of our lineup gets up, like if you're a base stealing threat, like the top of our lineup is going to get more fastballs because they don't want to throw breaking balls and let you steal second base and third base. You
I
know what I
used to
mean?
play against Zach Granite, not just at
Like,
Seton Hall, right? But coming up through the minor leagues and, when he was with the Twins,
yeah,
man, minor league. So, like, just in
he's
my
awesome.
mind, obviously he was a leadoff hitter for you guys and when we played. But I feel like that's kind of what you're describing. That's what I see. He was an unbelievable
Absolutely.
competitor.
Absolutely, yeah. He's a perfect example of what a Seton Hall guy is, and I'm glad we were able to bring him up. And that's really what, not he was the leadoff guy, but like he is kind of the mindset of like the 9 hole guy. To me, is like this year when we make the lineup, and Coach Shepard is awesome. Like, we sit down together and we make the lineup because, yeah, he's like the manager of the team and all the personnel and everything. But like when it comes down to it, I'm probably a little bit further in with all the guys. Like I know their skill set just probably 1% better than he does. Like, I've seen guys that, like, hey, this guy struggles to get bunts down off the machine every day. He might not be the best sack bunt guy right now, or this guy can handle the breaking ball a little bit better than you think he can. He might be a better suited in this position in the lineup. So like, to me, when I'm looking at the 9 hole in our lineup, to someone who might not get it, like, the 9 hole is not just like when you run out of good hitters, you get to 9 and you're like, all right, put Papaccio in there. Like, it's not like that. It's like, all right, Devin Hack is first team all conference in center field, and he hit 430 in conference last year. It's unbelievable. Like, he's going to hit leadoff. Who's going to hit before him 3 times during the game?
Mm,
Devin Hack is only going to be the leadoff hitter probably once in the game, and that's going to be the first. Who's going to hit ninth and set him up for Devin Hack and Max Vieira and
yeah.
Danny Melnick and Stosh and
Oh,
Pat Demik? Who's going to set up all those guys? Who's going to be the table set? Like, to me, that's like our 9 hole is not just like some guy that all right, he's the whatever, he's the left
we
fielder
can
or the
sneak him
right.
in there.
No, it's like, who's going to set these dudes up? Like, sometimes it's like last year, a good example. John Luders is an all-conference infielder for us, and he's probably the best advocate, one of the best advocates for Seton Hall baseball that we can think of. He was not a 9 hole hitter because of how good he is, but he set up the table so well that, like, for us to win, John, you might have to hit ninth. Like, for us to get, like, his on base percentage is astronomical. I think at one point he was like the 7th hardest person in Division One baseball to strike out, and he was hitting ninth because
It's
that set
absurd.
up our line, like that, and that's it. That's part of it for me. And like, that's another really long-winded answer.
No, it's beautiful.
There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just like, hey, this is a 9 hole guy. Like, we want the guy that's going to embody what we're trying to do to table set the top of the lineup.
Yeah, there's a plan for success with every little spot in the order, right? You're gonna look for them to do certain things, utilize certain skill sets. That's awesome. So
You know,
Giuseppe, yeah,
one thing I'd want, I don't want to cut you off, and
no, no, no,
it's something that I feel bad about the transfer portal thing. I don't want to portray that the transfer portal is bad. We've gotten some absolute savages, like guys that came here and are completely bought into what we're doing because the situation was not right where they were before. And they've been awesome for our program on the mound, at the plate, behind them, at shortstop. Like, the transfer portal has treated us really well. So I don't want to give the misnomer that, like, hey, our hardest obstacle is just like hoarding all of our guys from the transfer portal. Like
yeah,
that, we go and get good play. Like when someone graduates, gets drafted, leaves, we go and replace them with someone who can play right away. Like, so the transfer portal to us is like, if you took all the transfer portal guys off of our team, we'd be a very different team. Like,
oh yeah,
so to us, it's like really valuable, but there are obstacles when it comes to like holding guys back from trying to get to greener pastures, or what they think are greener pastures. So that's,
yeah.
I don't
Double-edged
know
sword,
where,
double-edged
yeah,
sword, almost, right?
100%. Yeah. I don't know where that would fit into exactly like what we were talking about before, but I didn't want people to be like, oh, the guy hates the transfer portal. It's not
No,
true.
no, it's
It
just
is
another
an
tool you have
obstacle.
to learn for your pro. Like that's for me. I never had to experience it, so I am now getting acclimated with it. Hopefully, what we talk about, I'm able to shed that light on to my audience, whoever's tuning in. It's like I fully don't quite understand it. I know there's rules between when you're able to hit it, when you're able to talk to certain, like, man, that's just a whole new layer, and that's why I wanted to ask you about scheduling. It's like my mind's blown kind of when I peel the top layer off. It's like, oh man, there's a whole different set of rules. You're talking about data technology, factoring that into, teaching these young men how to perform well. And then, the transfer, it's like, I feel like the game is changing. College baseball is changing, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's, for me right now, I'm trying to catch up. Right. So I am able to kind of learn the bits and pieces and, small nuances here and there from, top notch leaders like yourself in the game of baseball, man. So that's kind of what I wanted to highlight with everything here. And those are the questions I got for you, man. That's all I got
Thank
for you.
you.
I appreciate your time.
Dude, that was awesome, and I want to give you some respect too. I really think this has been awesome. I listened to all the ones that you've put out previously. One, I'm happy to be just in that family of coaches that you've already had on here. I mean, there's some really high level coaches and some guys that I respect and I learn from. But just talking to you initially, like, this seems like you've been doing this for a long time, and there's no fluff. I'm not patting your back or anything. It's the truth. Like, the questions have been awesome, and I think you're doing a really good job. So this is going to be something huge and awesome, and I respect you for it. I respected you as a player, and now this is something you're helping a lot of people with. So I respect you and appreciate you.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Giuseppe, thank you so much for your time. Giuseppe Papaccio, the associate head coach of the Seton Hall Pirates. Giuseppe, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you guys, continue to grind it out and put up big time numbers this year, 2024. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me.